This being the first day of January, let's consider Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. It says this, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." The fear of the Lord really speaks to not fear as in phobia, terror, but fear as in reverencing God. Reverencing God means that of all the voices, his voice is primary. It's practical too, because that's what Proverbs is. Not just reverencing God, but reverence in our life, in the life of the believer, should always lead to restraint. And that is, there's certain things that I can't do. All of us have made some major mistakes and failures, and we look back and think, oh no, why did I do this? That was a time when we probably weren't reverencing God, because where there's reverence, there's restraint. Finally, recognition. Part of reverencing God, seeing him as reverence, seeing him as most high, is recognition. It's in Proverbs chapter 3. It simply says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him." That's recognize him, and he will direct thy path. So as we consider this new year, check out the Proverbs.
It's January 2nd. We're considering Proverbs chapter 2. Proverbs chapter 2 is literally 15 verses, and it's all about understanding. In fact, 6 times, understanding. The writer talks about understanding. Understanding is the evidence of wisdom. He was growing up in the country, and that night his mom said she was making deer meat. He said, "I don't want deer meat." He was respectful, he was kind, but he was passionate. "I don't want deer meat, I want a hamburger." But his grandmother came home. She went into the kitchen, and half an hour later, she brought out a hamburger. She understood that she could grind the meat up, and she understood that this was important to him. Understanding. First, we want to understand God. That's called godliness. Second, we want to understand ourselves. Thirdly, we want to seek to understand others. That's empathy. Understanding is the evidence of wisdom. Proverbs chapter 2, read it. It's worth the read. Proverbs chapter 3 on January 3rd. Proverbs chapter 3 is rich. There's so much in it. But it also has a key portion that's probably the most memorized. It's Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. You know it. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path." Life has so many things that just don't make sense. Could be cancer. It could be finances. It could be a divorce. It could be some situation that just doesn't add up. And in the midst of it, in the moment of it, during it's easy to question God. It's easy to say, "God, you've made a mistake." This verse reminds us we trust God. More than what we see, more than what they say, more than what we feel, we trust God. Tony Evans said it this way: your view of God will determine your view of your circumstances, or your view of your circumstances will determine your view of God. Trust God. I've never been a gardener, but while pastoring in Charlottesville, Pat Edwards was an amazing gardener. She took it so serious. She knew the seeds, she knew the soil, she knew the seasons, and she would guard her garden with great deliberation. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 says this: "Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life." That is, we need to plant the right thoughts, meditate on the right scriptures, have the right affirmations, the right worship. We need to guard it, taking out things that are harmful. Don't let certain thoughts in. Don't let certain movies in. Don't let certain images in. Don't let certain voices in. Don't let certain music in. Guard our heart, because out of the heart flows the emotions and the thoughts. And the emotions and the thought are the fruit for our behavior and our living. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. It's January 5th, Proverbs 5. We're looking at the second part, and it's talking about wise intimacy or godly intimacy. Wisdom says intimacy in marriage should be refreshing. Verse 15 says, drink water from your own cistern, from your own well. Intimacy should be one, refreshing. 17 says, let them be yours alone. Intimacy in marriage should be exclusive. It's sacred, secret, or private. It's just between the two of us. It's husband and wife. It's wife and husband. Then lastly, intimacy should be glorious. Verse 18 says, may your fountain be blessed. It's glorious. It's God's design. Wisdom reminds us that the same God who made vanilla and chocolate and strawberries and cherries also made intimacy in marriage. That's the truth on intimacy in marriage. Proverbs chapter 5, read the whole chapter. You'll be blessed.